my may be seated. My face hurts because I'm smiling so much today. And other days like this, I think it's a good time, a good reminder of how many blessings we have in our life. First of all, I would like to say Mazel Tov to Baden and Zane and their little baby daughter, Sivan. Every path of every person, every family, and every baby is different. And this baby is a true miracle for a family, miracle for our community, and a miracle for the people of Israel. Welcome to this world. We're happy to have you here with us. Mazel Tov. Also, today is a very special day because we have a unique service, Slichot service tonight. And I believe, and I'm very sure about that this is the most beautiful Slichot service in Toronto, possibly in the entire Canada. And of course, everyone is welcome. And it's very beautiful and it's very special, and it's a very wonderful tradition of our shul to have this kind of service with the choir and quartet, and it will be amazing, so please come. Before that service, we are going to have a lecture class by our very special guest today, Rabbi Kaylee Romick. And Rabbi Kaylee Romick is my dear colleague and my friend. And I've known her for many years, and we studied together at the Jewish Theological Seminary for 5 years, so she knows me very well because we've been through a lot in these years. And when you study in the seminary and you are choosing, you chose to be a rabbi, but what kind of rabbi are you going to be? There are different types of rabbis. You can be a pulpit rabbi like I am. You can be a rabbi at Hillel and working with young people. But there are rabbis who choose a very different path. And these are the rabbis who are the most kind and most strong, most compassionate, and the most resilient. Those rabbis choose the path of chaplaincy, working in hospitals, working in the elder care homes and other facilities such as hospices and end-of-life services. This job, it is very complicated because it requires a lot from you, especially a lot of kindness and a lot of understanding. And Kaylee is this kind of a person who chose chaplaincy as her path. And she is right now working at the Good Shepherd Hospice. She lives in Long Island, so she came here from the United States, especially today, to give us her sermon and then teach a class. The class will begin at 8:45 p.m. and at 10:15 the Slichot service will begin, so please join everyone. Don't miss this opportunity, and I'm inviting Rabbi Kaylee Romick to come here. Go.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's very exciting to be here at Beth Tikvah with all of you and see familiar faces, to see new faces. I want to thank Rabbi Grover, Rabbi Zilbershtein, and Chazan Kovari for inviting me to be with you at this very special time of year with the high holidays right around the corner, and to be a part of the Best Slichot program in Toronto. That is an amazing thing. So we started off today with a baby naming, and that's such a beautiful thing. Mazel Tov to the family. And what I'm talking about is the other end of the spectrum, end of life. And every day I work with people who are thinking about what it means for them to wrap up their life and to make the most of the days that they have left. And I believe that it's not something that we need to be thinking about just when it's about to happen to our loved ones or to us, but it's something that can actually, if we can become comfortable with the conversation, help us reflect on how we're living right now and how we can live more meaningful lives, be more attentive in our relationships, and make the most of the time we have. And the Parsha is Moses hearing from God that his time is coming to a close. It says, Vayera Adonai be'oel moed ba'anan ve'omer amud ha'anan al petach ha'ohel. God is preparing to talk to Moses by appearing in this form of a cloud, which I think is really interesting. The pillar of cloud, you can't see through a cloud. There's so many unknowns, and that can be scary. And end of life can kind of feel like a cloud when you're first looking at it, and you need people like the many amazing professionals I work with to help lead the way through that process. The Torah then says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Hinecha shochev im avotecha. You are soon to lie with your ancestors. Now, God isn't specific about when this is going to happen. And God does talk about what he wants Moses to do, but many of the people I work with receive the same news and are left asking, now what? I don't exactly know when this is going to happen. I've chosen a hospice because it will keep me comfortable and it will increase, hopefully, the quality of the days I have left. But I have a lot of questions. And the biggest question I get from people is, as I said, what now? What do I do? My patient, and I change all of my patients' names for the sake of their privacy. And it's interesting. Just a side note, I'm part of a medical team, so I have to abide by the HIPAA laws in the United States, the healthcare privacy laws, and it's very interesting because as a rabbi, you're talking about school and all of our training. That is something I learned once I got into the field, and it's very important. So I'll talk about my patient Patty, whose name I changed for her privacy. And she was a patient who asked me, what am I doing now? She's a homemaker. She raised 2 children. She took care of everybody her whole life. And I walk into her living room and she says to me, I feel like a lump. And she has a great sense of humor, and she isn't like so down about it. She's very grateful. She says, I have my son taking care of me. I have a great home health aide. Everyone from your organization is so helpful, but I don't know what I'm doing. And one of the biggest challenges that she and many of my patients face is a lack of purpose or a change in purpose. In her case, she's watching everyone do for her what she is used to doing for everybody else. So there's a loss there. While she's grateful on the one hand, and so happy to be in her own home and with family she loves and people taking care of her, there's a loss. And part of my work as a chaplain is honoring both, is allowing her to be grateful and allowing her to, not to say, but you have so much to be grateful for, but and you have so much to be grateful for, and it's hard right now. It reminded me of a midrash that we have about Moses in Midrash Mishlei, where the midrash imagines and fills in kind of what Moses is thinking and feeling, because we don't really have a lot of that in the Torah. We have everything that he says, but we don't have like the personal experience. What is Moses as a human being going through? And the Midrash says that Moses, who has just appointed Joshua as his successor, goes to Joshua's house, where Joshua is now the main judge. He's taken all the cases of the Israelites. And Moses stands in the doorway. I'm going to step aside from the podium like this, with kind of bent over and with his arms crossed. Kind of like if anyone does yoga, like a shavasana or a corpse pose. He's a dead man walking, because he's seeing somebody else do what he's done his whole life, and he has to ask himself, if someone else is doing what I do, what am I still doing here? That said, I believe as a hospice chaplain, I have a sacred duty in pointing people in a direction that they can find some meaning and some purpose in the time they have left. And a lot of that is through what we call life review, but what many people call storytelling or reminiscing or talking about the olden days. And we see that reflected in the Torah as well. We've been reading the whole book of Deuteronomy, for the past couple weeks, and Moses is telling all of the tales of the Israelites. We went here and we went there, and this happened, and this is how I reacted, and this is how you reacted, and this is what I want you to remember, and this is what we learned about, and remember it. And so I feel privileged to be a part of that process for many people who are telling me their stories, and I'm able to kind of say, oh, it seems like this is a big theme in your life. This was really important to you. Have you talked to so-and-so who was there with you about it? Or do your grandkids know that happened? Or does your spouse know how much that you appreciated that they did that? So as a chaplain, I can kind of listen for these very beautiful and meaningful moments that people express to me in what could be a very long conversation, and kind of help highlight what are those meaningful moments that have given them a sense of identity, a sense of purpose, and a sense of meaning. And taking this time is such a gift. I had a patient, Joseph, again, not his real name, but Joseph sat in his living room just a couple weeks ago, and he spoke about his discovery of an enzyme in a military research lab, and he told me that he couldn't tell me what it was because it's classified, but he told me that he never really got credit for it because he was a civilian scientist working with the military, but I could tell it meant a lot to tell me about that, and that point of pride. And he also told me about his career as a teacher and a teacher trainer in New York City public schools, his love of travel and photography, and caregiving for his wife during her illness with cancer. And he said to me, I'm happy. I have a glass of wine with lunch. I have a little personal pizza every day, and I'm happy. And I felt such a solace being able to engage in this life review process and hear what had been meaningful to him. Now, I was surprised when I went into work on Monday and I heard that he died suddenly over the weekend. He was not someone who I expected on the trajectory to die very quickly, because we have different prognoses, and they're different, just like in any profession. There's you become familiar with the patterns. And as strange as it sounds, in hospice, you also become familiar with the way that things usually go. So when I learned that he had died, I was shocked, and I was so disappointed, because honestly, I wanted to go back and continue talking to him and hear more about his travels, from that standpoint. But I got a call from his son, and usually I'm the one calling the family to give condolences, but in this case the son called me, and he said to me, "I think my dad's conversation with you gave him the closure he needed to let go, and I'm relieved he didn't suffer at all." And hearing that it just brought home how important life review and taking the time to reflect can be, and how facing the unknowns of moving into the next world, so to speak, can be when you have the safety and the security of knowing what your past was and knowing who you are. And of course, one of the most meaningful parts of my job is being there as people say goodbye, and helping people find the courage to say goodbye, and for family members to come into a room that can be scary, or to honor their parents' wish of being able to be home, or their loved ones' wish of being able to be surrounded by family. It can be very daunting to walk into a room and see your loved one in a state that's very different than they've been their whole life. But those sacred moments and the courage I see in the loved ones of my patients allow them to say goodbye in such meaningful ways. And I remind them that more often than not, their loved one can still hear them, and they can say whatever they want. And I encourage them to express love and support and reassurance. I'll be fine. I love you. All of those just beautiful short sentences that mean so much. And being there as the chaplain, witnessing it, and creating a holy space with words, with prayer, if families are comfortable with that, and being able to do that is the biggest privilege of my job. So we're coming on the high holidays, and what does that have to do with why is a hospice chaplain here talking about her job right before the high holidays? It's because the high holidays in the rabbinic imagination are a dress rehearsal for end of life. On Yom Kippur, it can be traditional to wear a kittel. On Rosh Hashanah, to wear a kittel, the white robe that you'll probably see many of the clergy wearing. That robe is very similar to some of the garments that are traditional to be buried in. We talk about prayers. We read the Unatana Tokef, a kind of I find it a disconcerting prayer sometimes, depending on the day that I'm reading it, but it reminds us of all of the unknowns. What could happen this year? Good things could happen this year. Awful things could happen this year. Whatever happens this year, I'm moving forward. I have the courage to move forward and to meet it. And I'm going to take the time to reflect during these holy days to assess where I am. A lot of people don't do that assessment until a loved one of theirs is dying, and they say, I never repaired my relationship with them, or I have so many regrets because, I moved and I never visited, or I saw this person all the time, and we always did the same thing, but we never really talked about our emotions, and I'm not sure if she knows how much she means to me. The high holidays give us that opportunity year in and year out to ask ourselves those questions. How are we doing in our most important relationships? How are we doing with our meaning? Are we leading meaningful lives right now? And if not, what can add meaning? And so we have an opportunity in a lower stakes, in an opportunity to make the most of what we say in Hebrew is orech yamim, the length of our days, to make sure that they're full of quality, meaningful relationships, forgiveness, and that we can move forward knowing that our purpose is set, or that our purpose has changed with intention. And so that once we get to the point where we hear what Moses hears, that our days are coming to a close, we can look back with pride and with joy, and be surrounded by those who love us most. Shabbat Shalom, Gmar Chatima Tova, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.